I knew Caleb was up to something the moment I stumbled across that crumpled receipt in his coat pocket for a diamond tennis bracelet from Cartier. My heart sank, and an uneasy feeling crept over me. We'd been married for 12 years, but our relationship had grown strained recently, with him working late nights and being increasingly distant. That evening, I confronted him about the receipt over dinner. "Honey, what's this for?" I slid it across the table. Caleb barely glanced at it before dismissing it with a wave of his hand. "Oh, that must be an old receipt. I returned that piece ages ago." "Really?" I pressed. "It's dated last week." He gave me a tight smile. "You know how forgetful I can be sometimes. It must have slipped my mind." My gut told me he was lying, but I didn't push further, not wanting to ruin the evening. As we cleared the dishes in tense silence, I wondered when the secrets had started between us. Later that night, I couldn't sleep, replaying Caleb's odd behavior over the past few months, the mysterious phone calls, his sudden aversion to intimacy, the way he'd snap at me over trivial things. Had the man I loved, the one who had once doted on me, somehow become a stranger? Beside me, Caleb's deep breathing filled the stillness of our bedroom. I studied the harsh lines of his profile in the moonlight, my heart heavy. What had happened to us? When had the fractures begun splintering our marriage? I wanted to believe his excuses about the receipt, to trust the vows we'd pledged before our family and friends. But a nagging voice deep inside warned me that my husband was keeping secrets. Secrets that could shatter the life we'd built together. A week later, Caleb surprised me with an expensive bottle of red wine for our anniversary. "I picked this up on my latest business trip," he said, handing me the heavy crystal decanter. "It's from a small vineyard in France. The owner claims it has special properties that can help reduce stress and anxiety." I forced a smile, turning the bottle to examine the ornate label. "It's beautiful. Thank you." "I know how hard you've been working lately at the nonprofit," Caleb went on. "With the upcoming fundraiser, you could use something to help you unwind in the evenings." An uneasy prickle ran down my spine at his insistence, but I pushed it aside, not wanting to start another argument. That night, I poured myself a glass and took a sip, the rich flavor filling my mouth. In the days that followed, Caleb continued urging me to drink the special wine each night, claiming it would ease my workload strain. Touched by his seeming concern, I obliged, savoring a glass after returning home from long days at the office. However, instead of feeling more relaxed, an odd lethargy soon set in. I started experiencing bouts of nausea and dizziness that I chalked up to overwork and stress. Caleb, meanwhile, remained distant, frequently traveling for business and leaving me alone for days at a time. One evening, I could barely keep my head up as we ate dinner in tense silence. "Are you feeling all right?" Caleb asked, eyeing me over his plate. "You look absolutely exhausted." I rubbed my throbbing temples. "I don't know what's wrong with me lately. Maybe I'm coming down with something." "Well, you have been putting in a lot of hours getting ready for that fundraiser." He gestured to the wine decanter. "Perhaps you should have another glass tonight. It's supposed to help rejuvenate you." I eyed the ruby liquid, feeling a flicker of unease. Could the vintage be the source of my odd symptoms? No, that was ridiculous. Caleb was just looking out for me, like always. Ignoring my gut instinct, I refilled my glass and took a long sip, the rich flavor now tasting slightly bitter on my tongue. In the following weeks, my health continued deteriorating at an alarming rate. Persistent nausea and fatigue plagued me, making it difficult to focus on even simple tasks. I forced myself to keep going for the sake of the nonprofit's crucial fundraiser, but it was becoming increasingly harder. One morning, I awoke feeling so dizzy I could barely stand. Clutching the bathroom counter, I stared at my ashen reflection in the mirror, my eyes sunken and skin sallow. This wasn't just burnout. Something was seriously wrong. Somehow I managed to drag myself to Dr. Simmons' office that afternoon. The kind older woman took one look at me and ushered me inside, brow furrowed with concern. "Alara, you look terrible," she said bluntly as I sank into the exam chair. "What's going on?" Haltingly, I explained my recent symptoms, the nausea, dizziness, fatigue. Dr. Simmons listened intently, jotting notes. "I see. And have you started any new medications or supplements recently?" I shook my head, then remembered the wine. "Well, Caleb did get me this vintage from France for our anniversary." She arched an eyebrow. How often have you been drinking it? A glass most evenings, like he suggested, I admitted. He said it was supposed to help distress. Dr. Simmons pursed her lips, then briskly ordered some blood work. While we waited for the results, she bombarded me with questions about my home life, if I'd noticed any changes in Caleb's behavior, how our relationship was faring. When the tests finally came back, her face turned grave. Alara, I've found abnormally high levels of toxins in your bloodstream, far too elevated for normal alcohol consumption. The room started spinning. Toxins? What are you saying? She placed a gentle hand on my arm. I think you may have been accidentally poisoned. We need to do further testing right away to identify the substance. I recoiled, my mind absolutely reeling. Poisoned? Surely there had to be some mistake. Not by Caleb. He'd never intentionally harm me despite his recent odd behavior. Would he? A sickening realization washed over me as I recalled all the times he'd pushed that damned wine on me. I doubled over, retching into the nearby trash can as the horrible truth sank in. Dr. Simmons rubbed soothing circles on my back. I'm so sorry, Alara, but we need to act quickly before this gets any worse. The first step is getting that wine out of your system immediately and putting a stop to whatever's causing this. Poison. My husband, the man who'd sworn to love and cherish me, had been systematically poisoning me with that twisted gift. As the reality crashed over me in waves, white-hot fury began burning away the anguish. He was going to pay for this. One way or another, I would make Caleb suffer for his unforgivable betrayal. After leaving Dr. Simmons' office in a daze, I drove straight to a home security store and purchased several hidden cameras. That night, while Caleb was away on yet another business trip, I strategically placed the tiny devices throughout our home, in the kitchen, living room, even our bedroom. I needed proof of his deception before confronting him. Part of me still couldn't believe the man I loved, the one who'd once doted on me, was capable of such monstrous cruelty. But the toxicology reports didn't lie, and my own failing health told a darker story. Over the next several days, I forced myself to keep up appearances, all while obsessively reviewing the footage from the hidden cameras. At first, there was nothing out of the ordinary, just Caleb going about his daily routines whenever he was home. Then one evening, I spotted him in the kitchen, pouring himself a glass of the tainted wine and something else. A small vial was produced from his pocket. With a furtive glance over his shoulder, Caleb emptied its contents into the decanter before giving it a swirl. My heart stopped as I realized what I'd just witnessed. The following morning, I composed myself and headed into the office, forcing a bright smile as I greeted my coworkers. But inside, a cold rage was building. That evening, I decided to do some digging of my own while Caleb was away again. Pulling out his laptop, I searched through his emails and files until I finally uncovered a damning thread of messages between him and a younger woman named Nadia. The contents made my blood boil. Nadia, it seemed, was under the impression that once I was taken care of, she and Caleb would be free to marry and start their lives together with my substantial inheritance. Attachments included bank statements showing a joint account funded by Caleb, no doubt to support his mistress's lavish lifestyle. I scrolled through pictures of the two of them on exotic vacations, bodies entwined, clearly intimate. The final image showed Caleb grinning beside Nadia on a yacht, his arm wrapped possessively around her waist as she flashed a gaudy diamond ring at the camera, the same ring from that damned receipt. Tears of rage stung my eyes as I realized the full extent of Caleb's deception. All this time, he'd been slowly poisoning me in hopes of getting his hands on my family's fortune while carrying on an affair with this cheap gold digger. Well, if he wanted to play underhanded games, I could play them too. But I wouldn't go down as another helpless victim to his schemes. Caleb wanted me gone. He was about to learn you don't cross Alara Winthrop without paying a dear price. Setting my jaw, I began gathering evidence. The toxicology reports, video footage, emails, and photos. Then I made a call to one of the city's most ruthless, yet brilliant, divorce attorneys. If my lying snake of a husband wanted a war, I'd give him one he'd never forget. In the days following my horrifying discovery, a cold fury took root inside me. I found myself going through the motions at work and home, putting on a calm facade while a storm of vengeful thoughts raged beneath. How could Caleb, the man who once doted on me, go to such vile lengths for money and a cheap fling? Did our years of marriage, of cultivating a life together, mean nothing to him? The breach of trust cut deeper than any physical wound, but I refused to be the victim here. Not anymore. One evening while Caleb was away yet again, there was a sharp rap at the door. I opened it to find a sharply dressed woman in her late 40s. "Mrs. Winthrop? I'm Attorney Grayson. We spoke on the phone." I ushered her inside, my heart thumping. This was it, the first step in taking my life back. Grayson was all business as she pulled out a legal pad. "Now, from what you've told me, we have a clear-cut case of attempted murder for financial gain. An open-and-shut case if I've ever seen one." Her words sent a cold thrill through me. Attempted murder, there it was in stark terms. My own husband had tried to kill me. Grayson laid out her strategy over the next hour, acquiring all evidence, finding an investigator to dig further into Caleb's misdeeds, dismantling his financial assets piece by piece. "The way I see it, we can ensure the court awards you not only a sizable settlement, but possibly even has him prosecuted criminally," she said with relish. "That slimeball won't know what hit him." A grim smile crossed my lips. "Good. I want to take him for everything he's worth." Grayson's eyes glinted with anticipation. "Leave it to me, Mrs. Winthrop. We'll bury this bastard so deep, he'll never see the light of day again." Over the next few weeks, I supplied her with all the evidence I'd gathered, toxicology reports, video footage, emails, everything that proved Caleb's poisoning attempts and his affair with Nadia. The attorney had an investigator working around the clock, unearthing even more financial records and personal communications, tying them together. All the while, I played the part of the oblivious, doting wife whenever Caleb was home, all while secretly gathering my forces. Let him keep thinking he'd won, I thought coldly. He was in for a rude awakening. The crescendo finally came when Grayson informed me she'd uncovered one last bombshell, a sealed prenuptial agreement Caleb had his lawyer draw up right before our wedding. One look at the fine print revealed he'd been intending to take everything from the start, playing me for a fool while he planned his eventual exit strategy with Nadia. That did it. The gloves were officially off. I met Grayson's steely gaze, feeling an uncharacteristic thirst for vengeance coursing through me. "When can we proceed with dismantling this snake's life?" I asked, the words tasting like acid. The attorney's smile was full of teeth. "Right away, Mrs. Winthrop. It's time to make your husband pay for his sins." The annual Winthrop Charity Gala was one of the most anticipated events in our social circle. Hosted at our lavish estate, it drew influential guests from across the city for an evening of philanthropy and revelry. This year, however, I had another agenda in mind. As I greeted our well-heeled guests with a polished smile, inwardly I was a roiling mass of nerves and rage. Attorney Grayson's team had spent weeks meticulously setting the stage for tonight's confrontation, Caleb's ultimate downfall. My stomach twisted as I spotted him holding court with the mayor and his wife, looking every inch the successful, upstanding gentleman in his tailored tuxedo. How many others had he so deftly deceived over the years with his lies and fake persona? No more. Tonight, the truth would finally come to light. As the evening wore on, I circulated through the crowds, making small talk and waiting for Grayson's signal. At last, she gave me a curt nod as the orchestra began playing a waltz. Showtime. Stepping up to the microphone, I tapped it to get the room's attention. If I could have everyone's eyes for a moment. Gradually, the chattering died down as hundreds of eyes swiveled towards me with mixtures of curiosity and confusion. Even Caleb looked nonplussed, brow furrowed as he made his way through the throngs. "First, I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight to support such a worthy cause," I began, keeping my tone light and cordial. "Your generosity never fails to inspire me." I paused, locking eyes with Caleb as he hovered near the front. "However, I also must apologize for being somewhat distracted this evening. You see, I've recently uncovered a shocking betrayal by someone quite close to me." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Grayson's assistant approaching Caleb with a court summons. His face drained of color. "For months, I was systematically poisoned by my own husband," I stated, raising my voice to be heard over the growing tumult. "All because he wanted to get his hands on my family's money and run off with his sordid mistress." Chaos erupted as I pulled out the toxicology reports, thrusting them towards the dumbstruck guests closest to the stage. See for yourselves. While I wasted away, Caleb was plotting to inherit my estate with his little tramp on the side. I whirled towards my husband, who was struggling against the firm grip of Grayson's burly assistant. "Go on, dear husband," I cried, voice dripping with venomous contempt. "Explain to everyone how you tampered with my nightly glass of wine. Or about your little love nest getaways with your mistress that you funded with my accounts." Guests shrank back, hands covering horrified mouths, as Grayson's team played the damning video footage on the ballroom's big screens. Caleb's furtive poisoning attempts, surveillance of his and Nydia's trysts. The stark evidence left him ashen, mouth working but no sounds coming out. In the uproar, I noticed a younger woman in the back, steadily making her way through the crowd, Nydia herself, clearly intent on fleeing. "You don't get to slink away, you worthless snake." I hurled the words like venom, seizing Nydia by her luxuriously coiffed hair as she tried to push past. "Meet Caleb's little harlot." Nydia let out a shriek as I flung her into the center of the madness, expensive jewelry askew. A low, feral growl rumbled from deep within me. "You wanted my life so badly?" I told her through gritted teeth. "Well then take a good long look, because this is what it's bought you." Security was already hauling the disgraced Caleb away, his eyes downcast and face flushed with shame. For so long he'd sculpted his debonair facade, lying and manipulating all around him like chess pieces. But no more games. As he was dragged past, finally defeated, our eyes met one last time. It was over. Finally over. In the aftermath of the gala fiasco, the fallout was swift and brutal for Caleb. By the next morning, news of his depraved schemes had spread like wildfire across our elite social circles. Outrage and condemnation poured in from all sides. Corporate boards issued scathing statements severing all ties. High-profile clients formally terminated his services. The mayor's office publicly censured him. Worst of all, the authorities launched a criminal investigation into his poisoning attempts based on the evidence provided. For so long, Caleb had carefully cultivated his image of upstanding success. Now that facade lay in ashes, replaced by the reviled face of a cruel, conniving sociopath. His reputation, professional and personal, was utterly destroyed. As for his mistress Nydia, she didn't fare much better after my very public humiliation of her at the gala. Turned out she hadn't been quite the innocent dupe she initially claimed when confronted with Caleb's machinations. No, she'd been an enthusiastic participant, clearly hoping to spend her ill-gotten share of my family's inheritance in hedonistic luxury once I was removed from the picture. Texts and emails uncovered by Grayson's team revealed her coaxing Caleb to hurry up and dispatch me so they could begin their jet-setter lifestyle properly. Needless to say, her name was swiftly muddied in the eyes of polite society. Her future prospects permanently marred by her rapacious greed and involvement in Caleb's poisoning plots. Surely even her looks wouldn't be enough to snare another wealthy benefactor after this sordid episode. I watched with a mixture of vindication and revulsion as it all unfolded, picking up the local papers and society rags that breathlessly chronicled each new lurid detail. A knotted mass of anger still churned in my gut at their casual cruelty towards me. Had I just been another means to an opulent end for those two snakes? Something to be disposed of without a second's compunction once I'd served my purpose? The thought made me feel ill. Gradually, though, the bitterness began melting away, replaced by a profound sense of relief and freedom. Finally, I could move forward without Caleb's lies and machinations hanging like a millstone around my neck. Finally rebuild and reclaim my sense of self apart from that toxic, ill-fated marriage. It was oddly centering, really. After so many years spent doubting my instincts and being gaslit by my husband's deceptions, I'd taken back the reins of my life in one fell swoop. No more tiptoeing around on eggshells. No more skittering away from confrontation. From here on out, I would call the shots in my own life. The divorce proceedings that followed were merely a formality at that point. Nydia, broke and disgraced, had zero leverage to extract funds from me. Caleb, his reputation and finances decimated, had no choice but to accept defeat and relinquish his claims to my substantial assets. I'll admit, I derived no small satisfaction from seeing him in the courtroom, slumped and glowering as his grandstanding defense attorney babbled ineffectual protests. Let him glare all he wanted. The law was firmly on my side this time. Afterwards, Grayson clapped me on the shoulder, lips quirked in a wry smile. Jackass never knew what hit him, she chuckled. You played him like a virtuoso, Alara. I felt the first faint stirrings of lightness in my chest at her words, something I hadn't experienced in far too long, the upwelling of hope and possibility. It's over, I said aloud, more to myself than Grayson. He has no power over me anymore. I truly was free to start anew. The months following my bitter divorce from Caleb were a whirlwind of change and renewal. Gone were the dark days of walking on eggshells, fearing his wrath or latest betrayal. Instead, I embraced my newfound independence with a fierce determination. Of course, there were still struggles, the judgmental whispers from certain social circles, the ill-concealed leeriness of some former friends unwilling to take sides. But for every backwards busybody, I found twice as many stalwart allies bolstering me, cheering my resilience in the face of such unconscionable deception. Perhaps I should have seen it coming from my own family, paragons of perseverance that they were. My father, a self-made man who'd built a mighty shipping empire through sheer grit, was the first to clasp my hand in his calloused grip. That snake never deserved you, Ellie, he said gruffly. He couldn't hold a candle to the strength that runs in our blood. Mother, having coldly rebuffed all of Caleb's oily attempts to reconcile, embraced me with uncharacteristic tenderness. Oh, my dearest, never forget. The Winthrops always land on their feet, no matter what slings and arrows are hurled at us. You've proven yourself a true daughter of our legacy. With their fierce pride and faith buoying me, I felt layers of tension and self-doubt sloughing away by the day. In their place blossomed a rekindled sense of passion. For my work with the nonprofit, for cultivating nurturing bonds, and yes, even for that thrill of the professional arena Mother had always prized. So I dove headfirst into each endeavor, reveling in the ability to invest myself fully once more without Caleb's specter looming. The nonprofit's yearly fundraiser, once a source of such strain and discord between my ex-husband and I, became an empowering avenue for effecting real change in underprivileged communities. My role on the organization's board took on new vigor, too, as I campaigned tirelessly for increased corporate sponsorship, better programs, higher visibility. Gone were the days of Caleb nitpicking my every move with that insidious undercurrent of control. Freed from such toxicity, I soared, continuously shattering donation goals and overseeing budgets with an influx of fresh ideas and optimism. Even my fellow board members remarked on my newfound dynamism, some going so far as to float the idea of national expansion with me as the public face. You're unstoppable these days, Alara? Gerard, an elder statesman on the board, chuckled after one particularly galvanizing presentation I delivered. It's like a rebirth, like the real you has been unchained at last. His words resonated deeply within me as I accepted the torrent of congratulations with a genuine smile. Because in many ways, he was absolutely right. The old Alara had finally shed her shackles and inhibitions to emerge revitalized, like a phoenix rising from the ashes of that wretched marriage. In my personal life, too, I found myself reconnecting with cherished friends, making new acquaintances unburdened by Caleb's controlling presence. Dinners and social engagements became joy-filled occasions again, rather than source of apprehension over his foul moods or tendency to lash out when challenged. I even found the courage to dip my toes into dating once more after some gentle prodding from Mother. While none of the suitors quite sparked that elusive spark, it was heartening to rediscover my sense of confidence and femininity, too long suppressed by Caleb's emotional manipulations. As I twirled in the mirror one evening in a form-fitting cocktail dress, martini in hand and free of the hefty weight that had shackled me for so long, I felt a sense of profound contentment settle over me like a warm embrace. This, at last, was the authentic life I'd been seeking, vibrant, impassioned, beholden to no one's whims but my own. I'd been to hell and back, withstanding Caleb's worst torments, and emerged gloriously unbroken on the other side. Come what may, I would relish every breath of this hard-won freedom, seizing each new day as the wondrous gift it was. My name was Alara Winthrop, wealthy socialite, esteemed philanthropist, loving daughter and true friend, and I would never let anyone make me feel small again.
I'm so sorry. I unintentionally ran into a female coworker at work. A hand was immediately raised to me. Come together. Really. A really attractive woman, my boss Evelyn, who was notorious for detesting men, was standing there. Isn't meeting deadlines just a matter of professionalism? Don't be so casual when you call my name. Evelyn was cruel to me all the time. However, her attitude abruptly changed the moment my arranged marriage was decided. Don't go through with the arranged marriage. Consequently, I ended up disclosing a secret to Evelyn. Thank you for everything. I bowed deeply and thanked my boss, who had taken care of me for 5 years. She didn't reply, "Good luck," or "Take care of yourself from now on." Rather, she simply dismissed me with a wave and murmured, yeah, see you." My name is Jasper, 27 years old. Today, I'm leaving the company I've worked at for 5 years since graduating. Maybe my boss's attitude was one of the reasons I made this decision. Professional sports, a major corporation handling everything from development to sales of sporting goods. Its broad coverage of different sports, high-quality products, and exceptional after-sales support make it the undisputed leader in the industry. I wanted to join this company and support those who strive to be their best. I had played soccer for years, but a leg injury in college forced me to quit. After much deliberation, I decided to shift from being the one supported to the one providing support. I wanted to develop more user-friendly sports equipment and help reduce injuries among athletes. With that hope in mind, I beat the odds in an ultra-competitive hiring process and started working here. But we really can't see the reality from the outside, huh? Contrary to the company's flashy image, its internal workings were a mess. Employees were treated as near tools, with long overtime hours and weekend work being the norm. Whenever I tried to leverage my experience, my superiors would dismiss me with, "Just follow orders and don't do anything unnecessary." Many of my colleagues had no interest in sports at all. Why did I ever join this company? That frustration developed day by day, until it eventually exploded the other day. That's when I decided to resign. My next workplace is Evans Sports, but it's probably just more of the same. Compared to my previous company, this one was a virtually unknown small to mid-sized business. During my interview, the recruiter was shocked, exclaiming, "From that huge company?" That reaction alone probably got me the job. Judging by how my self-presentation mattered less than my background, this place likely doesn't care much about sports either. Thank you for everything. Saying my final goodbye to the towering corporate building, I thought about the new days ahead. No matter what happens, at least I'll still be involved in sports. I would be motivated just by that thought. I thought so. However, my expectations were, in a sense, totally let down. "Jasper, I heard you used to play soccer. We're developing new soccer shoes. Could you give us some feedback as an experienced player?" On my first day at Evans Sports, just after I introduced myself in the planning and development department, senior employees rushed over to me, not just one, but several at once. Sure. By the way, I played volleyball in school. Wasn't very good, though. I was a track athlete. And I was taken aback. Everyone eagerly started sharing the sports they had once devoted themselves to. Some had achieved great results, while others hadn't. But regardless, they all spoke with enthusiasm and joy. At my previous job, simply mentioning past sports experience would get you labeled as someone who was bragging behind your back. On the other hand, trophies were nothing more than tools used to compete for superiority. You all really love sports, don't you? Of course. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this job. The senior who had played volleyball answered as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. The other seniors nodded in agreement. I had to quit soccer because of an injury. I really wanted to keep playing, though. That must have been a tough decision. Yeah, even now, I still regret it. If only I hadn't gotten injured. That's why I wanted to create sports equipment that could help prevent injuries. I finally gathered the courage to share the hope that had led me into this industry in the first place. They might laugh at me. They might dismiss it with, "Don't waste your time thinking about unnecessary things." I was prepared for that. But instead, that's a tough one. Injuries happen for different reasons. It depends on the athlete's body, their condition on the day, the environment. There's no way to account for everything. Yeah, I figured as much. To my surprise, they all seriously considered my words. That alone was enough. This place was clearly different from my last job, and now I had proof of it. But it's an interesting idea. A small company like ours might not be able to pull it off. But if we grow bigger, it might become possible. We've got so many ideas we want to bring to life, too. Let's work together, Jasper. The hand extended toward me was covered in scars. Proof that this person had personally worked on countless prototypes, chasing after the ideal product. The other seniors had similar hands. No one at my previous company had hands like these. Likewise, I'm looking forward to working with you. One day, I want my hands to look like that too. With that thought, I firmly shook my senior's hand. And so, my new journey began. Even though playing long hours was no longer possible due to my injury, at my new job, my soccer experience proved to be incredibly valuable. Jasper, how did those feel when you ran in them? Close, but they need to fit the foot a little better. Got it. As soon as I gave my feedback on the shoes, my senior immediately got to work on improvements. The developers would create prototypes, and athletes with experience in that sport would test them firsthand. This process had become the norm in this department. Actually, we were just missing a soccer player. You're a huge help. No, if anything, I should be the one thanking you. Even after leaving my sport behind, I was still needed. I was the one who wanted to express my gratitude to them. The sense of purpose I had never felt before was now something I could truly grasp. Oh, right. I've been working on a prototype too. Could you take a look? As I turned around, my elbow accidentally hit a female senior colleague who had been standing behind me. Because of that, she lost her balance, and the documents she was holding scattered all over the floor. Oh no. I'm so sorry. I'll pick them up. Are you okay? As I hurriedly crouched down to gather the papers, I heard another woman's voice from above. It was a beautiful voice, and when I looked up, I saw an equally beautiful woman standing there. Ah, thank you. She gracefully picked up the scattered documents and handed them back to my senior colleague. Then she turned to me and shot a sharp glare. You should pay more attention to your surroundings. Yes, I'll be more careful. Flustered, I could only parrot her words back at her. With a quick glance in my direction, she clicked her heels against the floor and walked out of the office. That was unexpected. Bah, are you okay? I'm really sorry about that. When I apologized to the senior colleague I had bumped into, she made a rather complicated expression. You've caught Evelyn's attention, Jasper. Poor thing. Evelyn? Evelyn? You mean? Yes, the daughter of our president, Mr. Evans. And she absolutely hates men. I let out a sigh and glanced around in confusion. The other senior colleagues were also looking at me with pitying expressions. It seemed that the rumors about Evelyn's strong dislike for men were true. She spoke normally with female employees, but the moment a male colleague walked by, her expression would twist with visible displeasure, especially when I was the one nearby. Ah, good morning, Evelyn. Don't address me so casually. Sorry. As if I were something filthy, she quickly walked away from me without another word. Ever since meeting her, I found myself sighing more often. Just as I was starting to settle into my new workplace and get used to the job, Now I had to deal with this open hostility. It reminded me of the toxic relationships at my previous company, making me feel uneasy. But it's not like I can just avoid her forever. Evelyn worked in the sales department. She was responsible for connecting clients with our team, so I had plenty of reasons to interact with her. That made it even more important for me to maintain a good relationship with her. But is the prototype still not ready? The client has been waiting. Well, just a little longer. There are still some things that don't feel quite right. Whether or not you are satisfied with it is irrelevant. Meeting deadlines is basic professionalism, wouldn't you agree? Today, it was another male senior colleague being targeted by Evelyn. A female colleague stepped in with a now, to ease the tense atmosphere, and the situation finally calmed down. I quietly hid behind a stack of documents, hoping to avoid becoming the next target. It's probably because of Mr. Evans. After Evelyn left, someone muttered under their breath. Because of Mr. Evans. When I asked for more details, I was told that Mr. Evans was an extremely strict man, especially when it came to his own daughter, the future company president. He showed no mercy. Evelyn was probably just imitating him. But she only acts harshly toward male employees, right? Maybe it really is just because she hates men. Most likely. Sigh. Was this really okay? No matter how much she disliked men, treating people differently based on gender. I wouldn't want someone like that as the company president. I didn't say it out loud, but I couldn't shake off my unease. If that's how she wants to act, then. I quietly placed Evelyn in my mental category of people I'd rather keep my distance from. But later, I would realize that was a mistake, when I finally saw what lay beneath her cold words and actions. It happened one evening after work. That day, after spending the entire day running around for prototype testing and ending up completely exhausted, I decided to eat out for dinner and stopped by a shopping district. That's when I heard it. Mommy, don't cry. It's okay. You'll see your mom soon. A child's sobs and a woman's gentle voice. Huh. Curious, I turned toward the voices and couldn't believe my eyes. Standing there, holding a little boy's hand, was Evelyn. Huh. So she's actually kind to kids. Since she was always cold to men, I had assumed she treated all boys the same way. Surprised, I watched for a while. Wait a second. Let me show you something. After saying that to the boy, Evelyn took out her phone. Then she showed him the screen. Look, this is my cat. Cute, right? Yeah, really cute. He got separated from his mom just like you. I felt so bad for him that I couldn't leave him behind, so I decided to become his mommy. You're the cat's mommy. That's right. I can even speak cat. Meow. Haha. When Evelyn imitated a cat's meow, the little boy finally smiled. Seeing that, Evelyn also smiled. A soft, gentle smile, like a flower bud slowly blooming. Ah. My heart skipped a beat at the sight. She was already beautiful, but when she smiled, she was stunning. As I stood there, unable to look away, a woman suddenly rushed over to them. Kevin. Ah, Mommy. You disappeared so suddenly. Oh, did you take care of him? Thank you so much. No, I was just keeping him company. Take care, Kevin. Don't get lost again, okay? Evelyn patted the boy's head and then stepped away. Crap, she's coming this way. Panicking, I quickly hid behind a nearby structure. He said, "Thank you." He walked right past without even noticing me. Evelyn's cheeks were slightly flushed with joy, her steps so light it almost looked like she was skipping. It was an unbelievably adorable sight. Nothing like the Evelyn I knew at work. After discovering this unexpected side of Evelyn, she became someone I couldn't help but notice. I found myself watching her. Now that I thought about it, she had always been kind to the female employees. Maybe, just maybe, Evelyn is actually kind. What about me? Heh. Startled, I turned around. There stood Evelyn, wearing her usual displeased expression. Crap. I had assumed no one was around and ended up talking to myself. Did you hear that just now? Something about me? I didn't catch it clearly, though. Oh, I see. That's a relief. What? Evelyn narrowed her eyes suspiciously, studying me as if I were some kind of weirdo. Before, her lack of trust in me would have made me feel a little sad. But now, I figured we were even. After all, I had been secretly watching her too. Your voice is beautiful. What? I mean, your voice, it's really nice. Do you do anything special to take care of it? My voice? Evelyn blinked in surprise, looking completely caught off guard. It was the first time I had seen that expression on her. It felt refreshing. I don't understand. My voice? Beautiful? Her pale, porcelain-like face quickly turned red. Then she suddenly raised her voice, something I had never heard her do before. That's ridiculous. Don't tease me. With louder than usual clicks of her heels, she turned and hurried away. As I watched her retreating figure, I murmured quietly to myself, she really is cute after all. Here, these are the throat lozenges I use. One day during lunch break, for the first time since we met, Evelyn spoke to me. Hey. On dry days, I use a steamer for moisture. I've always had a weak throat. You remembered our conversation. That was 3 days ago. I wouldn't forget something like that. Maybe you should take care of your memory before worrying about your throat, Jasper. Oh, she remembered our conversation. More than that, I just realized she had called me by my name. You remembered my name? Ava. Once again, her face turned red, and she visibly panicked. It was adorable. I wanted to have more conversations with her, to see even more of her different expressions. I see. Now, Evelyn. Yes. Wait. What? Why are you calling my name all of a sudden? Do you need something? I just wanted to try calling you that. Is that not okay? It's not okay. She turned bright red and snapped at me. But this time, she didn't walk away. And for some reason, that made me really happy. Why didn't you check beforehand? A sharp, heavy voice echoed through the hallway in the evening. The woman being yelled at didn't even try to defend herself. She simply bowed deeply. I sincerely apologize. Making such a basic mistake at this point is proof that you're being careless, Evelyn. I will make sure this never happens again. The woman bowing her head was Evelyn. The one reprimanding her was our president, Mr. Evans. In other words, he was Evelyn's father. Wait, please. Unable to stand by any longer, I rushed over to them. Mr. Evans shot me a piercing glare as I suddenly inserted myself into the situation. And who are you? I'm Jasper from Planning and Development, Mr. Evans. Planning? Then this isn't entirely unrelated to you either. With that preface, Mr. Evans revealed the reason for his anger. The incident had occurred this morning. Evelyn had taken a newly completed product to one of our key retail clients. However, what she delivered was not the final product, but an unfinished prototype. I had a feeling I knew what happened. This morning, Evelyn had stopped by the office for something. After she left, I noticed it a little later, an unfamiliar box sitting on the desk. Could that have been? She must have mixed it up with something nearby. But that's no excuse. The fact remains, we caused trouble for the client due to our mistake. Yes, I truly apologize for my error. Evelyn bowed deeply once again. I couldn't take it anymore and stepped forward. Wait a second. Jasper, what now? Intimidated by his sharp gaze that seemed to say, "Don't interfere," I gathered my courage and raised my voice as much as I could. If we had noticed earlier, if we had contacted Evelyn the moment we realized. No, if we hadn't stored the prototypes in such confusing packaging in the first place. I took a deep breath. Well, we're all colleagues working together, so I don't think this mistake is entirely hers alone. I knew full well that what if didn't belong in the workplace. But I couldn't just stay silent, because Evelyn looked as if the world had just ended. Poof, that's a childish excuse. Do you think the client would accept that? I understand, but still. However, there is some truth in your words. Evelyn, you will one day take over as president. Your decisions will move employees, and at times, they may lead them into difficult situations. That is why even the smallest mistakes cannot be tolerated. Do you understand? Yes, Father. Good, as long as you understand. With that, Mr. Evans turned his back and walked away. Evelyn bowed to his retreating figure and then turned to leave as well, but I stopped her. Evelyn. What is it? Her expression and attitude had completely reverted to how she was when we first met. Are you okay? I'm fine. I'm used to this, so don't worry about it. Actually, could you stop bothering me? You're being a nuisance. Wait, what? A sharp pain shot through my chest, like I'd been punched in the heart. I didn't want this. Because I don't want to. Because I like you, Evelyn. What? The words slipped out before I could stop them. I had always wanted to confess my feelings. In the right place. In the right moment. Not like this, standing in a hallway. I like you, Evelyn. The kindness you try to hide, the way your expressions are actually so full of emotion. I'm sorry. I also love how, wait, what? I just got rejected. By the time I processed what had happened, Evelyn was already walking away. Evelyn. My father said it himself, didn't he? That I will become the company president one day. You and I are in completely different positions. Position? That doesn't matter. That's something only a carefree employee can say. Must be nice not having to carry anything on your shoulders. You've probably never even felt real pressure. Well, she was right. There were struggles in her life that I would never fully understand. As I stood there in silence, she turned back, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Let me be clear. You and I are worlds apart. If you want to be with me, at the very least, you should be a department head. A lowly employee like you confessing. That kind of overstepping. Don't ever do it again. She spoke as if she were some classic villain, sneering at me with a cruel smile. Then she finally walked away. Meanwhile, not only had I been rejected outright, but I had also been completely crushed by her harsh words. Evelyn, I still like you. I reaffirmed my feelings in my heart. Even if I had been brutally rejected, it wasn't like I could avoid seeing her. That was the biggest challenge of falling for a colleague. Evelyn, look at this. We decided to store all prototypes in clearly labeled boxes in the back of the office. That way, there won't be any more mix-ups. Sure. And also, this is finally done, the new love model I've been working on. Is that so? God, this is awkward. I was intentionally acting the same as before, but all I got in response was sure, or is that so? Even though I was with the woman I liked, my heart felt anything but light. It was unbearably heavy. Jasper. Hey. When a senior colleague called me over, I honestly felt relieved. Yes. What's up? Mr. Evans is calling you. Did something happen? I mean, Mr. Evans personally calling you in. That's not normal. My senior looked genuinely worried. Could it be that I was about to get fired or reassigned to some dead-end position? With the murmurs of my colleagues behind me, I steeled myself and headed to the president's office. But my resolve was soon shattered by Mr. Evans himself. Jasper. Sorry to call you in during work hours. His voice was calm, his demeanor relaxed, completely different from the furious man I had seen the other day. There was even a faint smile on his face as he welcomed me in. Mr. Evans. About the other day. Have a seat. I lost my temper back then, but thanks to that, I got to see what kind of person you are. Huh. To put it simply, I like you. He made this unexpected statement and continued. He had looked into me after our last encounter. He found that despite my short time at the company, I had already made meaningful contributions, and that made him like me even more. The products you've worked on seem to be well received by our clients. You have both knowledge and a strong willingness to learn, expected from someone who came from one of the industry's top companies. Being suddenly showered with praise, I could only sit there, overwhelmed. But at the same time, a faint hope flickered in my chest. If Mr. Evans thought this highly of me, maybe I had a chance with Evelyn too. However, as if seeing right through my thoughts, he hit me with an unexpected proposal. Jasper, how about an arranged marriage? Wait, what? An arranged marriage? It's with the daughter of an important client. She's about your age. Saying this, Mr. Evans placed a photo in front of me. There in the photo was a stunning young woman in her early 20s, looking like a model or an idol. If this marriage goes through, our families will be connected, which will strengthen our business relationship. It will be beneficial for both sides. I trust you understand what I mean. I have high expectations for you. I believe you have the potential to become the head of the planning and development department someday. A promotion to department head. The moment he implied that, Evelyn's words echoed in my mind. If you want to be with me, at the very least, you should be a department head. This was the perfect chance to get her to take me seriously. However, accepting this opportunity would also mean the end of my feelings for her. Think carefully. This decision will shape your future. Despite his words, his eyes made it clear, refusing was not an option. If I rejected this marriage, I might lose my place at this company. And if that happened, I wouldn't even get to see Evelyn anymore. But if I accepted, I would have to give up on her completely. What should I do? Please give me some time to think about it. That was the only response I could manage. By the time a week had passed, rumors had spread like wildfire. I had suddenly become the center of attention. Man, I can't believe it. You're getting engaged to her. That's insane. She's not just gorgeous, but apparently has a great personality too. Jasper, you really lucked out. There's no way you're turning this down, right? You're accepting it, aren't you? If it were me, I'd say yes in a heartbeat. Well, I still need a little more time to think about it. I kept dodging the endless questions and congratulations, but the constant attention had already worn me out. If that were the case, I should just give Mr. Evans my answer already. But I couldn't. Because of her. Evelyn. Even though I knew in my head that this was a hopeless love, every time I saw her, my resolve to visit Mr. Evans wavered. And so, I kept postponing my response. That night, as I worked late alone in the office, all I could think about was Evelyn. She had been beautiful today, as always. And kind. She casually picked up trash that had spilled from an overflowing bin, lent a hand to a colleague struggling with heavy bags. At some point, her attitude toward male employees seemed to have softened. At this point, it felt like I was the only one she was still cold to. I see. She really does hate me now. I thought we were getting along, but maybe that was just in my head. Someone as beautiful and kind as her. It's only natural that she'd have suitors lined up. A rising star at another company, the son of some CEO, or a charming client from one of our business partners. A woman like Evelyn could choose from the best of the best. She didn't need to settle for some middle manager at a small company. Maybe I should just give up already. I couldn't let go of my feelings, but I knew I probably should. A company heiress and a regular employee, she had been right. The gap was too wide. This was always a love that was out of my league. If I go through with the arranged marriage, maybe I'll be able to forget. If that's the case, forget what? A sudden voice from behind made me jump so hard I nearly fell out of my chair. I slowly turned around, only to find Evelyn standing there, looking just as surprised as I was. "You scared me. Don't yell like that all of a sudden." "Sorry, but what are you doing here? There's no one else left in the office." She became silent. I never expected her to have any reason to talk to me. Thinking she should go home since it was already late, I was about to say so, but she didn't move. Are you really going through with the arranged marriage?" With how much people were talking about it, there was no way she wouldn't have heard. But now that she knew, I decided that I would go to Mr. Evans tomorrow with that resolve. I nodded and said, "Yes. Yeah, I figured I might as well meet her at least. Maybe it's fate in a way." Fate. But someone like me isn't fit to be with the daughter of a company president. She'll probably turn me down anyway. That's right. And she's supposed to be really pretty too. Younger than me. Evelyn. Something was off. She always carried herself with such confidence, but now she was looking down, trembling. And she has a wonderful personality. They say she's kind and honest. And I shot up from my chair, almost knocking it over. Tears were falling from Evelyn's clear, beautiful eyes. "What's wrong? What happened?" "She's nothing like me. I can't compare. Of course you're going to fall for her, but I like you, Jasper." She whispered those words, then covered her face with her hands and broke down into tears. "Puh. Evelyn? Just now. I said it." Evelyn sobbed like a child, her crying growing even louder. All I could do was stand there awkwardly, waiting for her to calm down. I must have looked ridiculous. Sorry for that. She had been crying for almost 10 minutes before finally settling down. But the way her expression seemed somewhat lighter, it wasn't just because she had cried her heart out. Was what you said earlier true?" The moment I asked, her face turned bright red. But this time, she didn't panic or try to run away. "Yes, I like you, Jasper. I don't actually want you to go through with that arranged marriage. But forget it, okay? You and I will never be together." "What? Why?" We had just realized we had feelings for each other. Seeing my confusion, Evelyn began to explain, and what she told me was a painful part of her past. There was someone before, a colleague from sales. I fell for him and gathered the courage to confess, and he said he liked me too. I was so happy that I told my father. But that was a mistake. That was a mistake. Right after they started dating, Mr. Evans offered the man an arranged marriage, much like he had done with me. He dangled the prospect of a promotion, and just like that, the man dumped Evelyn without hesitation. The woman he was set up with was the daughter of a much bigger company. Beautiful. Kind. He told me she's the better choice and that he only got close to me because I was the president's daughter. That's awful. Both that guy and Mr. Evans. He left the company and became a son-in-law in that family. I hear their business is failing now, so I've moved on. Evelyn forced a smile, but it quickly faded. My father wants to arrange a political marriage for me with someone of his choosing. And to make sure that happens, he drives away anyone who might stand in the way. Every single person I've had feelings for has either been lured away or scared off. The men who accepted the arranged marriage abandoned her without hesitation. The men who refused, fearing Mr. Evans's retaliation, chose to walk away, leaving Evelyn to face heartbreak time and time again. That was why she had lost faith in men. I'm my father's daughter, so I could tell. He set his sights on you now, Jasper. That's why you put on such an obvious act, talking about our different statuses and how a lowly employee shouldn't confess. Wait, you knew. Of course, because you're the woman I love, How can you be good at everything except acting? Even back then, as she threw those cruel words at me, I had felt happy to see a new side of her. That's why I hadn't been hurt in the slightest. If anything, it only made me love her more. It felt like we got closer. What? No way. Since when? Do you still have trouble trusting men? At my question, Evelyn lowered her gaze slightly. After a moment, she nodded. Yes, a little, but I'm trying. I know the male employees here are good people. That's a problem. A problem? Why would that be an issue for you, Jasper? Because the Evelyn boom is already starting. Starting. In the office, people keep saying, she's much kinder than before, or she really is gorgeous, isn't she? I really don't need more rivals popping up. What's that supposed to mean, Jasper? You're surprisingly selfish. Evelyn sighed in exasperation, but smiled as she did. Her smile suited her best, and I loved seeing it. How could I make sure she kept smiling by my side? Evelyn, just to check, do you hate unemployed men? What? All of a sudden? I guess it depends on the person. What if I lost my job tomorrow? Tomorrow? Just like that? That's obvious, isn't it? There's no way I could stop loving you, Jasper. Her words and gentle smile gave me the push I needed. Evelyn, tomorrow. Let's go see Mr. Evans together. And so, the next morning, looking straight into Mr. Evans' eyes, I firmly declared, I decline the arranged marriage, Mr. Evans, because I love Evelyn. He didn't say anything. Mr. Evans glared at the two of us standing side by side, but I no longer felt intimidated. Now that we had confirmed our feelings for each other, the only thing I feared was being separated from the woman I loved. And we had already discussed how to prevent that from happening. I will never approve of this. Evelyn, since he is rejecting the engagement, Jasper is nothing more than an ordinary employee, completely useless. That means he is unworthy of you. You mean you simply don't like him? Evelyn shot back. Mr. Evans looked slightly taken aback. As both his daughter and the future company president, she had always followed his orders. But not anymore. Last night, she had vowed not to be controlled any longer. I'm serious about this. Please accept us, Mr. Evans. Father, I'm asking you to, Evelyn added. We both bowed deeply at the same time, but all we received in return was a cold, I refuse. Then tell me, what would it take for you to approve? I asked. If I work my way up on my own, would I be worthy of Evelyn? That will never happen, Jasper. As long as you remain in this company, I will ensure that you never get promoted. No matter how much you achieve, it will be pointless. I will block your path until you realize you are unfit for my daughter and leave on your own. At those words, Evelyn and I exchanged a glance. This was exactly what we had been waiting for. In that case, we'll start our own business. What did you say? You heard him, Evelyn said. Jasper, I'll block your promotion. Did you hear that? How could I possibly keep working under such a terrifying president? Evelyn exaggeratedly covered her mouth and dramatically expressed her shock. I chuckled and played along. Yeah, it looks like there's no future for me here as an employee. Maybe I should just start my own company. Even if it means being broke, at least then. Evelyn might actually accept my proposal. Proposal? That's way too soon. Mr. Evans was stunned, staring at us while I jokingly threw in a somewhat serious remark. Evelyn blushed but didn't seem entirely opposed. Mr. Evans remained silent, his gaze shifting between the two of us. Then, finally, he said, "Do as you wish." "Huh." I said, "Do as you wish. But if you interfere with me, I won't hold back. I will crush you by any means necessary. If you're prepared for that, then go ahead and start your own business." With that, he turned his back to us. Evelyn and I bowed to his retreating figure. Thank you for everything during my time here. Goodbye, Father. Before long, we left the company, with many of our colleagues expressing their regrets at our departure. And from that moment, we began preparing to establish our own business. Of course, we faced many hardships along the way, but we overcame them together. Several years later, in the present, Evelyn and I are now married and running a company together, designing, manufacturing, and selling sports equipment. Our flagship product is the Injury Prevention Uniform series, developed after extensive research into various causes of sports injuries. Recently, our business has finally gained traction, and our sales have been steadily growing. I think it's about time we had our wedding, I said. Let's invite your father too, Evelyn. I agree, Jasper. I'm sure he'd be happy. Believe it or not, he's actually pretty sentimental. Really? Well, that just makes me want to put even more effort into planning it. He probably thinks he's kept it a secret, but we know the truth. Until our business stabilized, Mr. Evans, now my father-in-law, quietly supported us from behind the scenes. And lately, I've been wondering, maybe his insistence on arranging Evelyn's political marriage wasn't just about expanding the company. Evelyn lost her mother at a young age and had only her father to rely on. Would her future partner truly be able to support her when she was eventually left alone? Would they stay by her side, even in the face of temptation and uncertainty? Perhaps, in his own way, Mr. Evans wanted to test and ensure that. I resented him for a long time, but I think it's time to forgive him. After all, thanks to him, I ended up with someone so wonderful. Looking at me, my beloved wife smiled. Even now, her smile suited her best. And I vowed to my father-in-law, whom I would soon see again, I will always protect this smile. I will always protect her. The presence of a loved one is a source of great power. Stepping into new worlds, facing formidable challenges, things that once seemed impossible now feel like nothing at all. Just by thinking of the person I cherish. Having that kind of person by my side, always, that is the greatest happiness in my life. You broke loser, come on, at least put on a suit. Daniel laughed loudly and told me, don't tell me you don't own one. My classmates with whom I was remembering also appeared surprised. I do own a suit, I shot back, annoyed by Daniel's remark. Why I had to feel annoyed at what should have been a happy setting was beyond me. Daniel had always denigrated me. It was time for me to explain things to him. I had decided on something. Mike Jones is my name. I'm 30 years old. We relocated a lot when I was a kid because of my dad's work. We moved to the country when my dad was transferred once more while I was in the 7th grade. My dad told me with a smile, I'm sorry for another transfer, but at least it looks like this will be the last one. Being shy and introverted, I found changing schools to be difficult, but I was happy that it would be my final time. Although the middle school I transferred to was significantly smaller than the one I had attended before, I was thrilled about the new life ahead, and all of my classmates were friendly. One individual, though, didn't think highly of me. Daniel Rickley was that person. Hey, nerd, don't spend all of your time studying. Daniel would constantly make fun of me. I was just copying notes. Stop talking. Don't respond, particularly if you don't even have a mother. Daniel raised his voice to scare me. When I was young, my mother died of illness. I wished there was some way I could speak with her, but there was no way. Hey, Daniel, don't say things like that. My peers frequently defended me when I appeared depressed, but that only seemed to make Daniel less amused, and he kept taunting me until we graduated from middle school. He would say, "You must have cheated, right?" whenever I did well on an exam. That's a false start. He said when I, as a member of the track team, recorded an excellent time. Try it again. Daniel didn't like me at all. I avoided him throughout middle school. Exams for high school admittance was a turning moment in my life. I purposefully picked a high school near my middle school since I had heard reports that Daniel was attending a different out-of-state institution. I thought I'd be free from Daniel. That was all I was thinking. Just as I wished, we went to different high schools, and I no longer had to deal with Daniel. I felt an indescribable sense of relief. I made new friends in high school and enjoyed my life there. I joined the track team again and spent my after-school hours working up a good sweat together with my teammates. It was a truly fulfilling and fun time, unlike my middle school days. After enjoying my high school life, I got a job at a sewing factory right after graduating. Though I wanted to go to college, I didn't want to burden my dad, who raised me on his own, any further. My dad had said it was okay for me to go to college, but I turned down the offer and started working at the factory instead. The job I landed was at a sewing factory for an apparel company. It wasn't that I had any particular interest in clothes, but this factory was the only place willing to hire someone with just a high school diploma like me. Until I got this job, I had never even touched a sewing machine, much less knew anything about making clothes. However, my bosses and coworkers taught me everything kindly and patiently. 5 years into the job, I had finally learned all the tasks in the factory. "Hey, Mike, I can't get this right." "Oh, let me do it. I think you should do it like this." "I see. You've been impressive lately." "I need to work harder," my senior coworker, Harper, said with a laugh. I, who didn't have any special qualities, had become knowledgeable in sewing. My colleagues depended on me. Life was fulfilling. Until that day. That day, something happened. I went to the factory as usual and was planning what to do that day with Harper. Suddenly, the entrance got noisy. "Is there something special happening today?" I asked Harper. She also looked confused. "Our boss said today there's supposed to be an important deal." I turned my gaze toward the factory entrance, and there he was. Daniel. The last person I wanted to see. I rubbed my eyes and looked again, but it was definitely Daniel. Why is he here? I kept my head down and continued working quietly. "Thank you for coming all this way." "Well, it's an important deal, of course." The boss was fawning over Daniel. Then, I could hear Daniel's voice getting closer to where I was. And when I finally looked up, Daniel was standing right in front of me, looking at me and laughing. He had found me. I had a bad feeling. "You're working here. I heard you started working right after high school, but in a factory. That's hilarious." I ignored his words and kept working. Then, the boss, looking surprised, spoke to Daniel. "You know each other. Mike has been working hard and has become a vital part of this factory." Daniel suddenly started laughing again. "This guy is a vital part. Back in middle school, he was a complete failure, always causing trouble for everyone. I can't believe it." Daniel's words caused the boss's face to harden. Harper, who was working next to me, looked at Daniel with a puzzled expression. "A failure, you say?" "Yes, really. Right, Mike?" Daniel suddenly turned to me. Annoyed, I said, "I didn't cause trouble for anyone. Can't you stop spouting nonsense?" Daniel's face became slightly angry. "I'm not spouting nonsense. You've been a failure since back then. How dare you talk back to me?" I was at a loss for words. Then Daniel said something shocking. "Sir, if you want to do business with my company, you'll have to fire this guy. If he's here, I'm sure the company won't do well. He's a jinx." Suddenly, the factory fell silent. My colleagues looked at Daniel with shocked faces. The boss took a deep breath and then said to Daniel, "Well, let's have some tea over there," and led him to the office. I couldn't understand what right he had to try and get me fired. Daniel has always been someone who tries to get his way in everything. As I sighed, Harper looked at me with concern. "Don't worry about what that person says. He's truly unpleasant." Harper offered me kind words while we worked. He's always disliked me. He just wants to make me suffer this time too. Over the past 5 years, I've worked hard and sweated it out in this factory, and the boss knows it. Even if Daniel, the client representative, requested my firing, I was confident the boss would never let me go. However, that confidence was shattered that evening. The boss asked me to come to his office. Having never been called by the boss before, I entered the office, puzzled. The boss seemed a bit down, and he began to speak. "Mike, I'm really sorry, but could you take a break from work until the deal with Tia Corporation is finalized?" Excuse me? I couldn't believe my ears. I never expected to hear something like this from the boss. He continued, "You understand how important the contract with Tia Corporation is to our company, right? Tia Corporation is a well-known company in the apparel industry, renowned to the point where nobody in this field hasn't heard of them. I remembered Harper mentioning that this deal could involve hundreds of millions of dollars. Yes. Apparently, Daniel has taken a dislike to you. If that causes us to lose the contract, it would be a huge loss for the company. But I don't want to fire you because you've been working so hard. Could you just take a break for a while? I'd like to pretend to fire you." All I could do was nod to the boss's desperate words. I couldn't understand why I, who hadn't done anything wrong, had to take a break from work. But for the sake of the boss and the company, I had no choice but to comply with his request. For a week, I stayed at home. I was unable to focus on anything. I hoped the work I was responsible for was okay with Harper handling it. Then Harper called me. There was some work she couldn't figure out. I tried to explain over the phone, but when I couldn't convey it well, I reluctantly headed to the factory. I sneaked into the factory and approached Harper. "Mike, I'm really sorry for bothering you during your time off," Harper said in a quiet, apologetic voice. Making sure not to be seen by other coworkers, I quietly showed her how to do the work. She seemed to understand and thanked me. As I was about to leave the factory without anyone noticing, an incident occurred. At the entrance was Daniel. He looked surprised, then raised his voice. "Why are you here? Weren't you fired? Damn it." I involuntarily stepped back, hearing his voice. The boss came out of his office, looking troubled. "Mike, I just came back for something I forgot. I lied to Daniel on the spot." Daniel scoffed at me and said, "See? You're bothering everyone. There's no place for a high school graduate like you to get employed anywhere. Get out of here if you understand." The boss nearby just silently watched, saying nothing. What have I done to Daniel? I was sick of his behavior. At that moment, something inside me snapped. "Daniel, why do you always have to be against me? I haven't done anything to you." Unable to hold back any longer, I raised my voice. The factory coworkers looked at me with concern, especially Harper, who seemed about to run over to me with a worried expression. Daniel, unfazed by my words, roared, "I hate you because you haven't put in any effort at all. Do you have any idea how hard I've worked to get to where I am today? Meanwhile, you, with just a high school diploma, are breezing through an easy job. You think I haven't put in any effort. Give me a break. Do you have any idea how hard I've worked at this factory?" Daniel burst out laughing. Anyone can work in a factory, can't they? No matter how hard I tried to talk to him, I couldn't get through. That's when I realized it was just a waste of time to continue this conversation. I walked out of the place. Even after I had left, Daniel continued to laugh. As I ran, I made a decision. A few days later, I called the boss and told him I was resigning. I thought I shouldn't cause any more trouble for the company because of my presence. The boss tried desperately to stop me, but my mind was made up. After that, I started job hunting. But it was frustrating not being able to find the next job right away. However, my father said, "You've worked hard until now, so it's okay to take a break. Life is long. A little rest won't hurt." Inspired by my father's words, I spent a year doing what I wanted. Having worked earnestly for 5 years, I had more than enough savings. I'll take my time finding the next job, I thought. When the time came, I smoothly landed my next job. Then I began working hard again. 6 more years passed, and I was now 30. My job was going well, and I was living peaceful days. One day, I arranged to meet Mason, a middle school classmate, at a cafe for the first time in a long while. Mason was my best friend during middle school. Since we went to the same high school, we remained close and occasionally met up to share updates after graduating. Now, Mason works for a multinational company, traveling all over the world. I was delighted when he wanted to meet. "Hey, long time no see." Mason greeted me cheerfully. "It's been 2 years since we last met before you went abroad," I said. Reuniting with Mason brought back memories, and our conversation flowed easily. "Hey, why don't you come to the reunion?" he suddenly asked. I was puzzled. "A reunion? I didn't get an invitation." "Didn't you get one about a month ago? This time, Daniel and I were organizing it, and Daniel said you wouldn't be attending," Mason explained. It was news to me. I hadn't received any invitation. It seemed Daniel had intentionally not sent me one, not wanting me at the reunion. "I didn't get any invitation. Daniel probably didn't send it to me on purpose," I said. Mason was surprised. "Is that so? I thought you just didn't want to attend the reunion. He's the worst," Mason said angrily while sipping his coffee. "Daniel being unpleasant isn't just a recent thing, actually." I told Mason everything that had happened 6 years ago. He looked at me incredulously. "I'm at a loss for words. That such a thing happened to you," he said. "Yeah, I figured. But I am who I am today because of him, so I've let bygones be bygones." Indeed, Daniel was unpleasant. But thanks to him, I was able to grow stronger. Without him, I might have remained a person with little self-confidence and no particular quality forever. Over the last 6 years, I came to think this way. "What about the reunion? Daniel will be there too. Want to skip it?" Mason asked, considering my feelings. I laughed. "Since we're here, I'll attend." Mason smiled happily. Honestly, I was a bit afraid of meeting Daniel. He would probably just insult me again. But I am not the same person I was 6 years ago. I decided to attend the reunion with pride. After promising to meet at the reunion, we parted ways to go home. I was truly grateful to Mason. If I hadn't met him today, I would never have known about the reunion. Thinking of the classmates I would meet after a long time, I headed home. On the day of the reunion, I wore a new shirt. Seeing that, my dad asked, "Aren't you going to wear a suit to the reunion? Isn't it at a 3-star hotel?" He looked at me worriedly. It was understandable for him to be concerned. A 3-star hotel, as the venue meant I had to dress appropriately. But I didn't want to wear a suit on my day off. That's why I prepared a shirt that's casual but suitable for a 3-star hotel. I reassured him. "It'll be fine." He still looked worried. "But that Daniel guy will be there, right? Won't he make snide remarks again?" I had told him everything that happened 6 years ago. He still harbored resentment toward Daniel, seemingly holding a grudge. I reassured him. "Even if he makes snide remarks, it's okay. I don't care anymore." I smiled. Seeing my smile, Dad seemed reassured and didn't say anything more. I left the house, looking forward to reuniting with my old classmates. I felt light on my feet. Entering the 3-star hotel, I was greeted by a grand chandelier and a glamorous atmosphere. Filled with anticipation, I made my way to the hotel's restaurant. "Mike, thanks for coming." Mason ran over to me, looking happy. "Hey, I'm so excited about today," I said, smiling naturally just by talking to him. We entered the restaurant. The restaurant was booked exclusively for the reunion, and a lavish spread of food was laid out. Even though the reunion hadn't officially started, many of my old classmates were already there, engaged in lively conversations. Seeing me, my classmates approached with cries of joy. Mike, it's been so long since middle school graduation. It's so nostalgic. My classmates approached me cheerfully. We were engaged in endless conversations about the silly and funny stories from our middle school days. Before I knew it, the reunion had started, and my classmates began to gather around one after another. Daniel has really made something of himself, hasn't he? A classmate suddenly said. What's so great about him? I asked, genuinely curious. The classmate quickly explained. He's apparently the sales manager at TA Corporation. To Corporation, as in that big company. Daniel was always smart, wasn't he? He's the most successful among us, and he's even pushing forward deals with that major apparel manufacturer. So Daniel became a manager right after I left my previous job. Well, it's none of my business. As I was thinking this, the entrance to the restaurant became even noisier. Oh, speak of the devil. There was Daniel, dressed in a fine suit. I involuntarily looked away. Daniel didn't know I was attending this reunion. In fact, he had intended not to invite me. I thought he would freak out if he found out I was here. I looked at Mason, and, in a low voice, he told me, "You haven't done anything wrong. Just stand tall and proud." Mason's words eased my mind a bit. I shouldn't care about Daniel at all. "Thanks, Mason," I said, and continued our conversation. But soon, Daniel spotted me and looked as if he had seen a ghost, probably not expecting me to be here. He raised his voice. "Why are you here? You weren't invited." Daniel's face turned red with anger. "Mason invited me to the reunion. If it's a middle school reunion, I have every right to attend, don't I?" Daniel reacted immediately to my words. "I don't consider you my classmate. It's presumptuous of you to come to the reunion without my permission." Hearing Daniel's words, the surrounding classmates began to murmur. "This is not the place for you." "Geez, how long will he keep insulting me before he's satisfied?" I was utterly exhausted. "So you'll be satisfied if I leave?" Daniel scoffed. "Yeah, that's right. Now get out of here. And that outfit. It's totally out of place here, isn't it?" I had managed to talk a bit with the classmates I wanted to, and thought it might be best to leave as he suggested. Then he added insultingly, "Wear a suit at least, you pathetic thing. Don't tell me you don't own one." I was speechless. What is he even talking about? I do own a suit. I just didn't want to wear one on my day off. Daniel laughed even more at my words. I couldn't understand what was so funny. Don't act all tough. You didn't have the money to buy a suit, did you? You never owned one in the first place, did you? Admit it. You're broke. I was shocked by his rudeness. There was nothing more to talk about. I was about to leave the place, but he uttered words I couldn't forgive. "Hey, should I give you one of my old suits? It's more expensive than you could ever afford in your lifetime." Although I was frustrated inside, I pretended to listen calmly. "If you want to wear suits like mine, try getting a job at a renowned company like I did. Though that's impossible for someone incompetent like you." I reached my breaking point. I couldn't understand why he had to go that far. Just as I was about to raise my voice, Mason shouted, "Mike doesn't need your hand-me-down suits." I was shocked. Mason had always been gentle, and I had never seen him shout. That Mason was raising his voice for me. I was so surprised that I almost dropped my drink. Daniel, taken aback, glared at Mason. "Hand-me-downs? This suit is from KG Industries, the major suit manufacturer my company is about to deal with. Not something a poor person like Mike could easily afford. Daniel, unfortunately, could you cancel that deal?" The room seemed to go silent for a moment. "What?" Daniel acted as if he hadn't heard me. No helping it. I repeated the same words. "I'm asking if you could cancel the deal between your company and mine." The room fell silent. "What are you talking about? My company has no deal with you. Do you really not recognize my face? You know nothing, do you? I couldn't help but question Daniel, but he just laughed. What's with that tone? You're Mike the incompetent, right? There's no other option. I realized it was pointless to talk to Daniel and handed him my business card. Sorry for the late introduction. I'm Mike, the president of KG Industries. I mistakenly made a contract to create a collaborative product with your company, but I'd like it to be annulled. What? President of KG Industries. Daniel's face turned pale. Seeing Daniel's reaction, Mason said, "That's why I told you he doesn't need your suit. He has plenty without yours," and burst into laughter. Yes, I am the president of the major suit manufacturer, KG Industries. Becoming president was triggered by the incident 6 years ago. After quitting my job, I struggled to find new work. Luckily, I had savings, so I decided to take it easy for a while and made a suit for my father on a whim. My father wore suits to work every day, and I wanted to make a stylish suit for him. The suit was quickly finished, and when I gave it to my father, he was delighted, making me feel proud. My father wore the suit I made to work the very next day. That evening, he asked me if I could make 2 more suits. Apparently, his colleagues wanted one after seeing my father's suit. Of course, I made suits for his colleagues too. Then, the next day, someone else requested one. This cycle continued, and the demand for my suits grew. A month later, I was swamped with orders for dozens of suits. I was surprised that a suit I made on a whim became so popular. Seeing this, my father suggested, "Why don't you start a company, GED? If I could manufacture suits in a factory, I could sell them immediately without making customers wait." Inspired, I decided to establish the company. Starting a business required a substantial amount of money, and I even took out loans. But the demand for my unique and stylish suits never ceased, and my company quickly grew. Just 6 years after founding my company, it went public and became the suit maker so famous that nobody didn't know who we were. One day, I got a direct call from the president of TA Corporation. He wanted to collaborate with my company to create a new product. Collaborating with a major apparel company like TA Corporation would only increase my company's fame. The president of TA Corporation was very enthusiastic, even saying he'd spare no expense for the collaboration. Memories of trouble with an employee from TA Corporation, Daniel, crossed my mind, but I decided to focus on the company and went ahead with the deal. However, knowing that Daniel was still an employee at TA Corporation, I started to feel I couldn't continue the deal. I didn't want anything to do with someone so disrespectful. When Daniel found out I was the president of KG Industries, he started apologizing to me, sweating bullets. "I had no idea you were the president. Please forgive me." I ignored him and tried to leave the venue. He followed me and blocked my path. "Hey, I'm sorry. It was my fault. It was too late for apologies." I sighed. "It's too late. I won't forgive you." Then Daniel shouted, "We're friends, aren't we? How can you be so cold? If the president finds out this deal fell through because of me, I'll be fired. Are you okay with that?" Daniel was acting arrogantly even then. I took out my smartphone and called someone. Daniel just watched, puzzled. "Hello. I'm sorry, but let's cancel this deal." "What? What do you mean?" "Your employee Daniel's attitude is too much. I can't go through with the contract." The person I called was the president of TA Corporation. Knowing I was talking to the president, Daniel started to panic and fell to his knees. "What? I'll remove Daniel from the project. Please reconsider." "No, I've made up my mind," I said and hung up the phone. Daniel realized it was futile and just sat there in silence. I looked down at him. "I have one last question." Daniel stayed silent, but I continued. "I need to know, why did you always look down on me? Didn't you think it was cruel, considering I never did anything to you?" Daniel answered in a small voice. "I was jealous. You succeeded at everything without any particular effort, while I had to struggle." Only the person themselves knows how much effort and hardship they've gone through. It's terrible that you treated me so poorly because of that. Reflect on how much you've hurt me, I said, and left the venue with Mason. Daniel seemed to be crying pitifully for a long time. Mason and I left the venue with clear faces. Finally, I could say what I wanted to Daniel. Mason, thanks, I said, thanking him for being there for me. Mason smiled awkwardly and said, "We're friends, Scar. Of course, I'd do this much." Later, the president of TA Corporation and Daniel came to apologize to my company. "We're very sorry for the disrespectful behavior of our employee, Daniel. We'll reassign him to a regional office for reflection. Please forgive us." The president apologized deeply. Next to him, Daniel was also apologizing sincerely. "I'm very sorry for my past actions and will make sure not to behave that way again." I sighed and looked at my secretary, Harper. In a soft voice, she whispered, "He seems genuinely remorseful. Maybe it's okay to forgive him this time." Daniel was surprised by her presence. "You were there at that time?" "Yes. When I started this company, I had invited Harper to join because I knew she would be a great support, and I wanted to work with her. Moreover, Harper and I had gotten married, becoming husband and wife." "My husband always appreciates your help," Harper said politely. Following that, the president of TA Corporation and I continued our discussion and decided to proceed with the deal. As the president said, Daniel was reassigned to a regional office and never appeared before me again. In his new position, he seemed to have changed his attitude completely, dedicating himself to his work. I hope he continues to live without causing trouble for others. The brand we co-developed with TA Corporation became a massive hit. We sold millions, generating millions of dollars in profit for my company. I realized that without Harper's words, none of this would have happened. I can't thank her enough. Moving forward, I plan to make this company even better and ensure Harper's happiness. I am a 35-year-old man named Heath York. My life is busy every day right now, but it's rewarding in its own unique way. The time I spend with my family is priceless, and I love my profession. I never imagined getting married, but now I have a wife and 2 small kids. I thought no woman would ever be interested in me because I had only completed middle school. In general, women favor males who have greater educational backgrounds than they do. It should come as no surprise that graduates of highly esteemed national or competitive universities are typically well-liked. After all, graduates of these institutions are typically very talented. I didn't even finish high school, but I still wanted to attend college. After middle school, I was forced to start working, even though I truly enjoyed learning. I was up in a very impoverished home with only one mother. It barely mattered, even with child support assistance. Every day we lived on the brink. In addition, my mother only completed middle school, so she lacked credentials and had very few career options. She also had poor health, which made it difficult for her to go to work. Cleaning was her profession, but it was physically taxing, and she would get sick often. Pickles from a cheap grocery shop, thin miso soup, and basic white rice were our daily meals. We did occasionally eat meat, but it was always only tiny bits. I used to eat my plain white rice and watch steak on TV because I had never ever eaten one before. Rice was rationed though. We were only permitted to eat 1 little bowl every day. 1 little bowl a day was insufficient, even though it was just the 2 of us. As a growing youngster, I would visit a nearby bakery to obtain freed bread crusts because I was always hungry. However, the class leader, Matthew, made fun of me mercilessly after learning about it. "Are you really consuming free bread crusts? That's less than 1 animal in a zoo. My dog even eats better than you do. He receives premium dog food and fresh, locally sourced beef. For only 4 pounds, it costs $80. That costs more than ordinary rice. Yes, that is some high-end dog chow. Your dog eats a lot. But really, please don't bother me. You don't care about what I eat, do you? In fact, it does. People from other classes will start claiming that we all have poverty germs if there is a poor child in this class. It's not just you who has this issue. Man, be careful what you do. Exactly. If people start calling our whole class too poor because of you, that's messed up. I don't want to be labeled like that. Isaac, who always stuck to Matthew like a shadow, also joined in, throwing mean comments my way. It wasn't like I wanted to eat bread crusts. I did it because I had no other choice. If I had more money, I would eat more of the foods I wanted. For example, I would have raw fish sushi and the steak I've always wanted to try, things I rarely got to eat. And I wanted snacks too. Sometimes, I would stick my hand under vending machines, hoping to find dropped coins. On lucky days, I'd find a $1 coin, which I secretly used to buy cheap snacks. I knew it was wrong, but as a starving kid, I had no other options. Back then, I didn't even know middle schoolers could get part-time jobs, so that was the only way I could keep from going hungry. I also couldn't afford most of the school supplies I needed. Since we had no money, I wore hand-me-down uniforms from neighbors, and even my gym clothes were secondhand. Both the uniform and gym clothes were so worn out that anyone could tell at a glance how shabby they were. We were allowed to use any type of bag for school, but I couldn't afford the standard student bag that everyone else had. Instead, I used a drawstring bag I had made in my elementary school home economics class. Because of that, I was relentlessly mocked, and people started calling me Patchy as a nickname. To be fair, no middle schooler used a handmade drawstring bag from elementary school. It looked childish and honestly pretty lame. But I had no other bag to carry my textbooks and supplies. If I had money, I would have bought everything new. Still, I couldn't blame my mother. She raised me all by herself, and no matter how sick she felt, she still went to work. I wanted to grow up quickly so I could help her. To do that, I needed an education and a well-paying job. My mother always told me, education is the key to escaping poverty. I remember hearing a similar story about a comedian, Kyle. A comedian from a poor background, he was a kid who spent more time playing than studying. Watching his biographical drama, I assumed his family couldn't afford to invest in education. But his mother was incredibly passionate about learning and constantly pushed Kyle to study. Kyle didn't like studying, but because his mother was so insistent, he eventually started putting in the effort. He also had an older brother who was an excellent student, and maybe he didn't want to lose to him. In the end, Kyle got into a prestigious private university. But once there, he discovered comedy and ended up dropping out. His mother was furious at first, but as Kyle gradually gained fame, she couldn't hide her happiness. However, making a living as a comedian is tough unless you become a big star. Even after appearing on TV, Kyle still had to work part-time jobs. Then, one day, he got a call from his older brother with shocking news. His mother had collapsed from a sudden illness. The same mother who had always nagged him to study. The same mother who had kept his pocket money for him. Kyle never really liked his mother, but she was still his parent. So he rushed to the hospital. Lying weak in bed with an IV, his mother took something out of a drawer and handed it to him. It was a bank book under Kyle's name. To his surprise, it showed a balance of over $100,000. His mother had been saving for him, setting aside money from her part-time job and depositing all the pocket money she had kept. With a smile, she told him, "If I had given it to you earlier, you would have spent it all." She knew she didn't have much time left and wanted him to use that money to support himself. Kyle had always thought his mother was strict and cold, but at that moment, he finally realized how deep her love was and broke down in tears. Watching that story, I thought Kyle's mother had a point. Even though Kyle dropped out of university, the university later awarded him an honorary degree. Even though he didn't complete all his coursework, He contributed to the world as both a comedian and a film director, gaining international recognition. It convinced me that education was necessary to achieve greatness. So despite the struggles, I buried myself in my studies during middle school. But life doesn't always go the way you want. My mother fell ill and started being hospitalized repeatedly. She had no health insurance, so the medical bills were incredibly high. As a middle schooler, I had no idea about financial aid programs like the high-cost medical expense system. I just kept paying the hospital bills from my mother's meager savings. As that continued, I realized I probably wouldn't be able to go to high school. While everyone talked about which high school they wanted to attend, I was left out of the conversation. I wanted to keep studying in high school and eventually go to university, but for someone as poor as me, it was impossible. Around that time, I finally learned that middle schoolers were allowed to do certain types of part-time jobs. So, I started delivering newspapers. I also helped out at a local bakery in exchange for a small tip. Technically, they weren't supposed to hire a middle schooler, but they let me work under the pretense of helping out. Along with my small payment, they also let me take home bread crusts and leftover bread. By then, my mother could no longer prepare my school lunches, so I survived on the bread I brought home. Still, there were different types of bread, savory ones, sweet pastries, so I never really got bored of eating them. I was just grateful to have food. But since I ate bread every single day, I ended up getting a new nickname. Krusty. Yo, still eating bread again? That one looks kind of stale, though. Guess that's what poor folks eat. My family only buys bread from fancy bakeries, you know. We only get freshly baked baguettes and loaves that cost $9 each. But hey, you're rock bottom poor, so I guess you don't have a choice. Huh. For real, Krusty. How do you not get sick of that stuff? You must be seriously lacking nutrients. Is that why you're so scrawny? No muscle at all. Look at me. I've got abs. But you never even get to eat real meat. Honestly, that's just sad. Yeah, he probably gets to eat meat like once a year, and even then, just scraps. I bet he's never had steak in his life. Damn, that's rough. Man, I almost feel bad for you. The truth was, I really had never eaten steak. I hadn't even smelled it before. Even the scraps of meat I had were so rare that I couldn't argue back. I just kept my head down and ate my bread, but my tears made it taste salty. Seeing me cry, Matthew and Isaac took it as an invitation to mock me even more. Why did they hate me so much? What had I ever done to them? Then, high school entrance exam season came, but I didn't take any exams. I had already given up on going to high school. My homeroom teacher said it was a shame, but I had already accepted it as my fate. Instead, I found a place that was willing to hire me. It was the bakery that had been giving me small tips for helping out. They offered me a part-time job, and I was incredibly grateful. The baker's wife knew about my mother's illness and would sometimes pack leftover homemade side dishes for me to take home. I felt truly lucky to be working for such kind-hearted people. While everyone else was in high school, I was working at the bakery every day. Sometimes, I'd see high school students in their uniforms coming in to buy bread in the morning. Seeing them made me feel a little sad. If I had money, I would have been wearing a uniform and going to high school too. But I couldn't burden my mother any further. Now, it was my turn to support her. No matter how painful it felt, I threw myself into my work. Eventually, I left the bakery and started a different job. It's a busy job, but I enjoy my life now. And as fate would have it, I ended up marrying a woman who used to be a customer at the bakery. Now, I'm happily living my life with her and our kids. I really have no complaints. One day, I found a letter in my mailbox. It was an invitation to a middle school reunion. I wasn't particularly excited about it, but I was curious to see how everyone had turned out. What had they become? I was already a 35-year-old dad, so surely everyone else had become middle-aged too. When I arrived at the reunion venue, a large group of men and women were chatting away. Among them, one voice stood out loud and clear. It was Matthew. He looked pretty much the same, still youthful. Maybe he wasn't married yet. Not that it mattered, but single people do tend to look younger. Hey, if it isn't Krusty. Long time, no see. How's life? Not bad. What about you, Matthew? I'm doing amazing. I'm about to start my own company. I already quit my old job. See, I was never meant to be one of the used. I was born to be the one in charge. But hey, you're still at the bottom, right? Weren't you working at that tiny, rundown bakery? Man, I could never do that. Too embarrassing. Yeah, I mean, he's a middle school graduate. No skills, no real options. That was Isaac. Still hanging on to Matthew like always. He hadn't changed at all. Still had that same nasty look in his eyes. I was about to ignore them, but then Matthew hit me with another arrogant remark. You know, Krusty, you should really show me some respect. I just got a $50 million investment from a major company. Bow down, man. Then, out of nowhere, he splashed his drink all over me, laughing obnoxiously. He and his cronies howled in amusement. I was completely soaked. Yeah, Krusty, you better start showing us some respect. Oh, and by the way, Matthew's going to be the CEO, and I'm going to be the vice president. Without missing a beat, I responded, oh yeah. Well, that deal's off the table now. Huh. What the hell are you talking about? You lost your mind or something. Did he finally snap? That's hilarious. Nah, I'm serious. You guys should start worrying about yourselves instead of laughing. I'm saying you're not getting any investment. Oh, wait, do I need to spell it out for you? The CEO of that major corporation is me. What? What the hell did you just say? Quit messing around. There's no way in hell you're the CEO of Japan Food Corp. Well, actually, I am. Back when I worked at the bakery, I handled sourcing wheat and eggs. People told me I had a good eye for quality, and I started to find real joy in evaluating food ingredients. So, I founded Japan Food Corp, a company dedicated to sourcing the finest ingredients from around the world. No way. You're seriously the CEO of that company. But we were planning to make money in the food industry too. This is insane. You're just a middle school graduate. Just because someone didn't go to high school doesn't mean they can't do anything. If you work hard, there are always people who recognize your efforts. And if you have a vision, you can carve out your own path, even build your own company. Growing up poor, I had an obsession with food. What I wanted to eat and what people considered truly delicious. But becoming a CEO because of that. I studied food relentlessly. What makes something taste good and what people desire. I bought and tested all kinds of food, researched the market, and developed a deep understanding of flavors. That's how Japan Food Corp grew and became successful. Yes, I had to become the CEO of a massive corporation. While working at the bakery, I learned how to judge the quality of ingredients. My childhood hunger and fascination with food fueled my desire to learn more, and that passion eventually led me to establish my own company. By the way, my company generates $8,000 million in annual revenue. So, a $50 million investment was pocket change. But I had already decided I wasn't going to invest in you guys. Actually, the whole investment deal wasn't even my decision. It was my executive director, Marcus, who arranged it behind my back. Turns out, Marcus had taken bribes from you guys to push the investment through. Once I found out, I planned to shut the whole thing down. I originally had no interest in attending the reunion, but once I learned about the bribery, I decided to go and settle things. By the way, you guys were expecting an investment from Marcus, right? You bribed him, didn't you? You really thought that was okay? Oh, well, we didn't bribe anyone. It was just a business dinner. Oh yeah? Giving someone $30,000 in cash is just a business dinner now. That's a hell of a thing to say. I wouldn't have the guts to claim that. But hey, don't worry. You're definitely going to be punished for it. I'll make sure of it. When I said I would rat them out to the police, Matthew and Isaac turned even paler. They looked as pale as green apples. Then they begged me, pleading desperately not to call the police. Please, just don't go to the cops. I don't want my life to be over like this. If this gets out, it'll ruin my future. I have a family. I can't let them suffer because of this. So what? I have a family too. If you really cared about yours, you wouldn't have done something so stupid. I bet your wife would be devastated to hear what you've been up to. I'm engaged. I promised my fiancée a future. Please, don't report this. I'm begging you. That's not happening. Some things are just non-negotiable. You crossed the line, and there's no coming back from it. No. What are we supposed to do? Wait. How about this? We'll get on our knees and apologize. That'll make it right, won't it? Please. Oh, so now you're getting on your knees and apologizing. Yeah, we'll do that. Right here. Please, just let this go. Well, I didn't need that. I didn't need their pathetic display. But they threw themselves to the ground, crying and begging anyway. Even so, I had no intention of letting them off the hook. If Boeing could fix everything, they wouldn't be in this mess in the first place. My decision is final. I'm not investing in you, and I will report you to the police. So rest easy. You bastard. We bowed to you. Don't get cocky. You used to be a broke, weak loser. Yeah, don't you dare look down on us. Just give us the investment already. Oh? Are you threatening me now? Well, that makes things even easier. I guess I have no choice but to take legal action. Looks like I'll be heading to the police station after this. Wait. No. Please stop. Don't do this. You'll ruin our lives. As if they had any right to say that. They were the ones who had ruined my childhood. I had wanted to make good memories in middle school, but because of those guys, all I got was humiliation and misery. Now that they were the ones suffering, I figured it was just karma for everything they did in the past. Life isn't that easy. You reap what you sow. I turned on my heel and walked out of the reunion venue. Then, I headed straight to the police station. I had no sympathy for them anymore. They deserved whatever punishment was coming their way. At the police station, I reported that Matthew and Isaac had bribed Marcus. I also exposed Marcus for eagerly accepting their bribe. How did I know about the bribery? There was a reason. My company's secretary happened to witness the whole thing. Not only that, but she secretly recorded it and sent the video to me. With solid evidence like that, there was no way those three would escape punishment. The footage went like this. Ah, I really appreciate this. No, the pleasure is ours. We never expected to get a $50 million investment. Well, your company is an essential partner for Japan Food Corp, so this amount is nothing. I'm sure Mr. York will approve it afterward. That would be wonderful. Here, please accept this token of our gratitude. What's this? Wait, is this a stack of cash? Yes, exactly. It looks pretty thick. Just between us, there's about $30,000 in there. Oh my, you guys sure are bad, handing over a bribe like this. Well, we have to maintain a good relationship. This is just part of the game. Please take this as a gesture of our appreciation, Marcus the Great. Oh, stop it. Flattering me won't get you anything extra. Ha ha, ha ha. They were laughing like idiots in the hallway, never realizing they were being watched. I couldn't believe how stupid they were to expose themselves like that. Shortly after, Marcus, Matthew, and Isaac were arrested. Matthew's big business plan crumbled before it even started, leaving him with nothing but debt. They had already invested in machinery and equipment, spending a large amount of money on them. It seemed they used specialized machines, each costing anywhere from hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. They had gone on a reckless spending spree, only to be left with nothing but crushing debt. Technically, bribery laws usually apply to public officials, but in some cases, they also apply to certain private individuals. For example, CEOs and executives of companies can still be charged with bribery offenses. In addition, their actions could also be considered a breach of trust, which carries serious penalties. Since Matthew was supposed to become a CEO, he was likely to face a harsh sentence. Not that I cared. Whatever happened to them next was none of my business. They could rot in prison for all I cared. And after that, they could struggle under the weight of their debt and suffer through hell. In the end, it was decided that Matthew and the others would go to prison. Matthew's wife, disgusted, took their child and left, filing for divorce. Isaac's fiancée also dumped him. Clearly, neither of them wanted to be associated with a criminal. If I were in their shoes, I'd have done the same thing. Losing their families, Matthew and Isaac finally realized the gravity of their crimes. They desperately pleaded with their lawyers to save them, but it was too late. Their crimes were too severe, and there was nothing that could be done. With this, everything was finally settled. If I had let things continue unchecked, I might have ended up being held responsible too. People could have accused me of failing to supervise my own executive, which would have put me in serious trouble. From now on, I want to put more effort into employee education to ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. Bribes, whether giving or receiving, bring nothing but trouble. Receiving money without any effort is dangerous. Once someone gets a taste for easy money, they start believing they can make a living off of it. I firmly believe that money should be earned through hard work. I struggled immensely to make money since I only had a middle school education, but looking back, it was a valuable experience. When I started my newspaper delivery job in middle school, waking up early was so hard. I was always exhausted in class, but I forced myself to wake up at 2 or 3 a.m., head to the office, and bike around town delivering newspapers, all for the sake of supporting my mother. At first, helping out at the bakery was also hard because I was carrying heavy things, especially since the baker's wife was pregnant back then. I carried the heavy items for her so she wouldn't have to. After finishing middle school, I worked part-time at the bakery, watching students in their uniforms head off to school with a sense of frustration. I wanted to go to high school so badly, but we didn't have the money, so I had to give up on that dream. Looking back, maybe things could have worked out if we had applied for welfare assistance. But at the time, I had no knowledge of such things, and no one ever told me about them. So I simply swallowed my frustration and worked. Still, that experience taught me the true value of money. My wages weren't great, but at least I could see the direct results of my hard work in the form of cash. With my first paycheck from the bakery, I bought my mother strawberries, her favorite fruit. She had always said that fruit was too expensive, but she often reminisced about the taste of strawberries from when she was younger. When I gave them to her, she ate them while tears streamed down her face. She kept thanking me for buying something so luxurious, which made me feel a little embarrassed. I remember that the strawberries were high-end, costing about $10 per pack. I couldn't afford to take her to a fancy restaurant, so this was the least I could do to make her happy. Now, I'm a CEO and have built wealth, but I probably understand the value of money better than anyone. That's why I can't stand bribery. Buying people's trust with money is inherently wrong. Trust isn't something you purchase, it's something you build. I always think about what I can do to make others happy and act accordingly. Trust is built when my actions produce results and help the other person understand my intentions. Since that incident, my company has improved significantly. I committed to organizational reform and implemented strict training for my employees. At first, many of them resisted the idea of undergoing training, but after actually experiencing it, they started to feel more motivated to contribute to the company and society. I brought in top-class instructors to conduct professional etiquette training. Ideally, this kind of training should have been done when they first joined the company, but I have been too busy to prioritize it. I reflected on my own negligence and resolved to be more mindful moving forward. As my employees started working with more enthusiasm, I felt even more motivated to improve the company. It was a win-win situation. I don't demand absolute loyalty from my employees, nor do I expect them to blindly obey. But at the very least, they need to understand the difference between right and wrong. That's why I insisted they undergo this training. Watching the process was enlightening for me as well, and I plan to continue these programs in the future. I believe that when the leader continues to learn, it positively influences the entire team. Unfortunately, I never got the chance to attend high school or university. My formal education stopped at middle school, but I've come to realize that school education isn't everything. What you learn in school is just the foundation for life. The real lessons come from actual experience in society. This training was a perfect example of that. You don't learn this kind of thing in school, so at first, many employees looked nervous. Even I felt a bit anxious just observing from the back of the room. Watching the strict instructors drill discipline into my employees made me break out in a sweat. But since all of this benefits society, I have to endure it. Even training sessions that seem unreasonable at first are actually full of useful lessons. I decided that from now on, I would actively seek out opportunities to learn and absorb as much knowledge as possible. As the CEO, I needed to keep learning so that my employees would also develop a thirst for knowledge. If they acquired new skills, they could apply them to their work, making the company even stronger. For example, in accounting, having a bookkeeping certification would make tasks much more efficient. But not all employees had it, meaning senior staff had to train the newer ones from scratch. So I thought about how to fix this. That's when I decided to introduce e-learning as part of our company's employee benefits. The company would cover all costs, and if an employee earned a qualification, their salary would increase accordingly. Other companies apparently offer only about $100 in certification allowances, but since I want employees to make the most of their skills for the company, I set it at $500. Since my company was thriving, this was an investment I could afford. As a result, more employees started dedicating themselves to self-improvement. I even allowed them to study during downtime at work if it contributed to the company's success. Many of them obtained new qualifications and became experts in their fields. Productivity increased, and the company became even more dynamic. Of course, sales skyrocketed as well, and now, my company's revenue exceeds $10 billion. It took significant investments to get here, but those investments have more than paid off. Spending money on education was never a mistake. Then, I remembered the story of Kyle, the comedian. Kyle's mother insisted that he pursue academics because she believed that education could help him in life. She must have repeatedly told him to study for that reason. As a kid, I wanted to escape poverty through education. I thought if I studied hard and got into a prestigious university, I could land a good job. But what exactly is a good job? What kind of work is considered valuable by society? In the end, I didn't go to high school and started working at a bakery. But even that was an important job. After all, we were feeding people. When I was younger, I believed that getting into a good company meant earning a stable income. But that's not what life is all about. Even if you graduate from a top university and land a high-paying job, you could still lose everything, just like Matthew did. Following the right path doesn't always guarantee success. What truly matters is constantly learning, improving, and gaining skills. It took me until this age to realize it, but I wish I had known sooner. If I had, I wouldn't have spent my youth drowning in feelings of inferiority. But in a way, those feelings fueled my hunger for success. If I had just wallowed in self-pity instead, I wouldn't have accomplished anything. So maybe feeling inferior isn't always a bad thing. If someone out there is struggling with those emotions, I want them to cherish that feeling. It's painful, and constantly comparing yourself to others isn't healthy. But if you deny your own struggles, you risk denying yourself entirely. It's normal to want to climb higher and gain recognition. So I want you to think carefully about how to fulfill that desire. And once it's fulfilled, what matters most is how you give back to society. I still have a long way to go, but I have big plans for my next business venture. I'm going to expand the bakery that once helped me into a nationwide chain, because I want everyone to experience the simple joy of good, affordable bread.